Hey, Josh here. Ever since the beginning of the pandemic, people have been listening to and following experts more often than before. But should we blindly trust the experts because they're experts? Let's find out. An article written by Pew Trust states that it is not enough to say the public should trust scientists because we know better or because we know more. Trust must be earned. Unfortunately, science and scientists have not consistently earned and nurtured this trust. Science in the 21st century is much more removed from daily life because of the necessity of speaking with precision by using technical terms and jargon. Although it may serve a purpose in the practice and communication of important developments within a field, jargon removes science almost completely from the realm of the lay public. Later on, they also say science has sometimes lost the trust of the public through researchers' own painful missteps and blatant violations of that trust. Science, engineering, and medicine are not immune to the discrimination, subjugation, and silencing of marginalized people and voices. We have too often been unwitting perpetrators of the status quo, and the reasons are deeply ingrained in the systems that govern our society. It's important to hold a mirror to the scientific community and recognize where we have made mistakes.
Hello? Good looking. Oh god, I can't even look at myself. That's how good looking I am.
Do you think people these days are handing out their trust too quickly without adequately thinking enough? Not just to experts, but to anyone. Also, when it comes to people choosing to believe the truth or not, the thing is, most people don't really want the truth. They just want constant reassurance that what they believe is the truth. This is basically the definition of one of the biases known as confirmation bias. You can read this article to learn about the others. I will, however, discuss another bias called authority bias, which is the tendency to blindly follow or believe the instructions and views of a person in authority. As human beings, we have evolved over the millions of years as a herd, led by a leader. As a result, human beings have a deeply rooted sense of duty to follow authority. In the olden days, the leader making the decision helped the kingdom overall. Not everyone had the knowledge and information to make the right decision in the past. Today, the world has moved forward. Every person has access to a vast amount of knowledge along with education to make the right call. Accepting their statement and belief of an authority blindly does not make sense anymore. Your behavior and actions should not be solely driven by guidelines from a different person. You must apply your thoughts and judgment. Authority bias is one of 20 cognitive biases that people can have that lead to bad decisions. One of the examples they give is on the 28th of January 1968, when a space shuttle exploded, it reportedly killed all 7 crew members 73 seconds after liftoff. The article states the reason behind the Challenger disaster was identified as a tiny elastic rubber part called the O-ring. The elastic ring turned rigid due to the cold because the O-ring only works at a temperature of over 53 degrees, while the weather reading on the day of the launch showed 36 degrees. 12 hours before the launch, the manufacturers of the O-ring had informed NASA about the risks due to the lower temperatures. NASA decided that the O-ring should not pose a serious threat to the mission, and the launch went as per the schedule. This article dives into the miscalculations of the data from NASA and all of the other scientific stuff. So if you want to know the details of what happened, check it out. Authority bias can be extremely dangerous when it comes to the new drugs. One of the worst medical tragedies occurred when the FDA drug approval requirements were almost non-existent. Germany in 1950 sold thalidomide to aid with sleeping issues and insomnia. Since little to no studies were done on their drug properly, it was advertised as safe for pregnant women and children, and later marketed in 46 countries. Soon after, birth defects started appearing in mothers who had taken thalidomide during pregnancy, and later studies showed that the drug was dangerous for infants approximately 20 to 34 days post-fertilization. Some of the defects include deletion of the ears, deafness, severe underdevelopment or absence of the arms, defects in the femur and tibia, etc. This tragedy occurred in 10,000 children born with thalidomide-related birth defects, with many now adults still suffering.
And I'm not an expert, but I know that's wrong.
However, the United States didn't have a thalidomide disaster because Francis Oldham Kelsey, a new FDA employee and physician, was hesitant after seeing studies published in Germany and asked for more information on the drug before approving it. This website states that one of the most serious problems regarding the FDA, particularly in recent years, has been its tendency to release serious warnings about drugs after they've been placed on the market. With mounting governmental pressures to accelerate the drug approval process, 71 out of 222 drugs placed on the market between 2001 and 2010 came with side effects so serious that the FDA issued black box warnings pertaining to potentially serious or lethal side effects of a prescription drug for these treatments. These safety concerns only came to light on average 4 years after the drug's market approval. The examples they give are Abilify, Accutane, and Cipro, and other examples I found of dangerous drugs that were previously on the market are diethylstilbestrol, fenfluramine, phentermine, rofecoxib, valdecoxib, seravastatin, troglitazone, terfenadine, mifedril, and phenylpropanolamine. They don't make the names easy to pronounce, do they?
Nailed it.
If you want to get deeper into the rabbit hole when it comes to this, Bloomberg wrote an article on how the creators of Zantac kept quiet about cancer risks for 40 years even after being repeatedly warned of the danger by their own scientists and independent researchers. In 2010, the FDA was forced to take the drug off the market. This is all revealed by the court filings, studies, FDA transcripts, and new drug applications which were obtained by the Freedom of Information Act requests. The reason for mentioning Zantac is that when people think a drug is completely safe to consume just because the FDA approves it, is just ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous.
Like Zantac, you don't need to look far back into the FDA's history to know that that is not a good way of thinking. This is further evident when looking at some FDA statistics. From this website, this table details the amount of pharmaceutical drugs recalls in a year from 2012 to halfway through 2021. There are 3 different classes. Class 1 is a dangerous or defective product that could cause severe health implications or even death. Class 2 is a product with a potential to cause a temporary or serious health problem. And Class 3 is a product that is unlikely to result in any health reaction but that violates an FDA labeling or manufacturing law. Do you see the issue with this table? Let's put this into percentages. Of all drug recalls, Class 1 makes up 10.3%, Class 2 makes up 79.5%, and Class 3 makes up 10.3%. So, 89.8% of all drug recalls could cause temporary or severe health problems. That's 11,495 in 9.5 years, or a bit over 1,200 per year. That's a lot. If only they could do a better job stopping these drugs before they go onto the market, not after.
Unacceptable!
As you can see, just because the experts say that something is safe doesn't guarantee that it is. Even though most experts go to a top-notch university and completed 1 or more degrees, that doesn't make them intelligent. Here's a quote. "I hate when people confuse education with intelligence. You can have a bachelor's degree and still be an idiot." With how the Cove and booster vaccines have been rolled out before proper testing of the short and more specifically the long-term side effects, do you think the world has made the same mistake? To quote a few other experts being dangerously wrong, they are: radium is healthy, smoking is healthy, lead and fuel is safe, and mercury cures syphilis. All of them cause people's lives to be lost or destroyed. So, I'll ask you this question again. Should we blindly trust experts because they're experts? Also, I'll ask that if you're finding this video to be worth your time, consider pressing the like button. Therefore, it can spread others to know it's worth their time too. Thank you. With the relationship between science and politics, this article discusses that they can have positive and negative effects. It states, the scientific method involves formulating a hypothesis, repeatedly testing this preposition, and making deductions which can be falsified. The findings that scientists discover could invariably play a role in future policy. For example, it is only because of long-term scientific research into the damaging effects of burning fossil fuels that governments around the world today are committed to green renewable forms of energy. However, a negative side is that politics is based around subjective biases and ideologies that will invariably have a mixed relationship with the scientific evidence. Politicians can fund research for their own benefit, and according to the Union of Concerned Scientists, the US federal government funded 42% of basic research in 2017, while the private sector funded 30%, the same amount as foundations, nonprofits, and universities. However, 85% of research funding came from industries, demonstrating how a potential clear conflict of interest could be in play if the industries wanted scientists to back up certain findings. Even though experts have created catastrophic events in the past, should we still just accept what experts say as the truth? JerichoChambers.com states that there is a broader issue of trust in experts which has not always received the attention it deserves, an issue that may also explain the disquiet about expertise in a period where democracy itself is in crisis. Briefly put it, the question to ask is not only whether we should trust the advice that experts give, but rather whether we should accept, and in that sense also trust, the role given to experts in policy decisions. The worry is around the tension between the ideals of democracy, particularly in deliberative forms, and reliance on expert advice for policy decisions. Trust in experts involves difference in their views, while democracy thrives on debate and disagreement. A related worry is that experts can tell us only the bare facts of what to do, devoid of the much needed advice on how to think about the ethics and the value of what we are doing. We are thus faced with a dilemma. Reliance on experts, and indeed trusting them, is an inevitable requirement of life in complex technological societies, but the consequent difference to the very same experts, the inability to subject them to the norms of debate as equal citizens, is deeply undemocratic. Basically, when it comes to the relationship between experts and politics, experts can make recommendations regarding scientific issues, but at the end of the day, elected officials have the final say. That's democracy. But what if experts had complete control without the presence of politicians? Well, this would be a technocracy. It refers to a government system wherein scientists and technical experts hold political offices and make decisions in public interests. These policymakers, also known as technocrats, utilize their knowledge and expertise to address issues, such as financial, industrial, etc., that the country is facing at the time of their appointments. It appoints government officials based on their specialization and performance instead of political affiliations. Relevant skills can range from scientific competence to technological proficiency and financial and economic understanding. Even though these decision makers are already part of the traditional government as advisors, they become rulers in a technocracy government.
I control your lives, and there is nothing you can do.
Technocrats would base their decisions on data instead of opinions in times of crisis or complicated situations. There are two different types of technocracy, partial and complete. Partial technocracy is where experts can take control and direct governments, but elected officials still have complete control. We've basically experienced this when experts like Dr. Fauci have made recommendations in response to the virus, and government officials implemented them during the pandemic. In a complete technocracy, experts have full control over a country without any oversight by elected officials, and obviously, at that point, it wouldn't be a democracy. Technocrats like Mario Monti, who's an economist, were elected in the past in Italy from 2011 to 2013. But because they usually become elected to solve a crisis, they don't stay elected for long. However, that's not the case for China's President Xi Jinping, having degrees in chemical engineering and law. Technocracy can be beneficial to get things done faster and more efficiently without politicians holding them back. There are many benefits to this form of government, but it hasn't been fully implemented in many countries because of the downsides. Technocrats are experts in specific fields, be it science, technology, finance, or economics. However, their lack of understanding of humanity and society sometimes makes them make harsh decisions without realizing its effect on the general population. No political involvement before holding public office means they miss out on political favors. They are often considered undemocratic for ignoring the public interest and infringing on their rights.
Ignorance is bliss.
If experts solely create scientific solutions for issues, these solutions could go against the populace regarding ethics, morality, or religion. Technocrats make decisions based on data and are not accountable to the people. It sometimes leads to the populist concept, i.e. deep state. The loss of connection with the outer world makes it difficult for technocrats to explore solutions outside of their technical expertise. As a result, they wind up enacting rules and regulations that are solely concerned with their field of knowledge, disregarding the requirements of the general population. Also, who selects the technocrats? What qualifies a person to be chosen as one? Are people chosen solely on their scientific knowledge or because of their scientific viewpoints? In my previous video, we discussed how science is not 100% accurate and doesn't aim to establish immutable truths. If technocrats try to implement laws or regulations based on scientific discoveries, that's not a good idea. Technocracy removes the ability for the public to make individual choices while suggesting they give up control of their lives.
Nobody's giving up around here, and don't you forget it, ever.
The reason for discussing it is to give you an insight of what it is and to understand that during the COVID crisis, we've experienced a taste of partial technocracy. I'm not saying that we haven't experienced it in the slightest bit in the past, or that it isn't beneficial at all, but it's essential to know how much it is a part of our lives so that countries don't go from being a democracy to a complete technocracy. Let's be the frog that jumps out of the pot early before it's too late. If you haven't already, I suggest checking out my previous video asking if science should be questioned, which goes into more detail about the science stuff, and below is YouTube's recommendation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.